Welcome everyone to another quick video I wanted to share here. In case you get your hands or want on a Radeon RX 6080 6800. Anyway, latest and greatest cards, you might have seen some YouTubers and other tech sites that they do not have the most outstanding ray tracing performance, and I previously already said that, at least Jay's 2 cents or so in the first video. At least I think he mispronounced or misspoke that this is done on an API level and not in hardware. I mentioned this already previously. Of course, it's in hardware, we have seen this. But so far, most YouTubers found this a little bit slower. But here's a German article I quickly wanted to point out for you. So this could be a little bit of early adapters, and this ray tracing might be better than previously thought. So this is right now GeForce, which we here don't prefer very much due to the lack of open source drivers, and rasterization versus ray tracing. Rasterization, of course, previous low-level videos of rasterizing triangles, texture to some frame buffer, or variants of that, and ray tracing the tracing rays, so to say, also partially, sometimes partially for shadows. And the difference here is, of course, rather large. Is a Radeon RX 60, do they call the 6080? Anyway, 6800, faster in rasterization. I hope that is our identical settings, and slower in ray tracing. And this might be a little bit of early adapters and not yet optimized games and drivers, because according to this German tech site, I would love to benchmark it myself, but hardware availability, right? They found here that, what is this here? But also, yeah, Crysis Remastered. It's like, yeah, ray tracing. Also, by the way, yeah, Radeon open source driver, totally amazing, obviously. And then here they found new games like Dirt. So there is a hope that new games, more specifically written for Vulkan ray tracing or Windows Direct, whatever, might actually be competitive in performance. Of course, the difference is that with this Windows enclosed stuff, you can never be sure how partially, maybe they could always play tricks, and partially like always be the whole truth. This is also the problem. A lot of people these days always take one famous YouTuber's word for granted, and then misinformation spreads on and on, similar to the NVIDIA fanboys here previously, because this could be similar to previously stuff like NVIDIA Hairworks here, not particularly optimized for AMD cards, or maybe allegedly maybe sabotaging AMD stuff and similar stuff what occurred in Intel's kernel, deliberately not using, like checking the CPU ID, and then only if CPU ID genuine Intel, then do the highly optimized math stuff, and otherwise it's like, yeah, AMD YOLO, whatever, they can run the unoptimized. Your mileage may vary, and be careful with binary only and YouTube benchmarks. That's mostly it. Also, of course, there is still the thing of in NVIDIA land you have this what is it called, DS something, whatever that, not really an NVIDIA stuff, but this mode where they ray trace with half the resolution or something, then with a quarter of the pixels, or even less dynamic modes. Of course, this is a little bit tricky of, like, yeah, let's skip over a little bit of this. So welcome everyone, welcome Marco. Marco says globally applying ray tracing sounds really stupid and waste of resources. Yeah, mostly my understanding, obviously not a Windows gamer, I just want to use this moment of spreading some information. Also drop frames. I hope the video is not too broken. This is hilarious. My understanding is they mostly use this for shadows, so they rasterize most of the times, rasterize all the usual scenery and characters, and only use that for shadows. And then NVIDIA has this mode. Let's maybe quickly NVIDIA ray tracing D, whatever that mode is, DS, whatever, partially, whatever. With that mode, they only do like partially, should expect near futures, partially use something 2008. What was the mode? DS a whatever something as usual. You don't find this mode, whatever that was, ray tracing. Yeah, you get the idea. So in that mode, my understanding is they, as I said already 2 times in this video, they only use half of the resolution or something, a quarter of the pixels then, and DS, whatever that was, what ray tracing, whatever, DS, what DLSS maybe, dynamic, here, probably performance headroom maximize of dedicated AI processor, ultimate mode for 8K gaming. Yeah. My understanding is, as far as understood, it is quality mode. Is it not? I thought it is. Anyway, you get the idea. Yeah, it's mostly about, it's of course somewhat a gimmick, but yeah. Both on this bit of both in NVS. One fun fact is we had maybe one last thing, and then we end this live stream. I have certainly one other short thing to speak about, which is this resizable bar. AMD, that was, what was it called? This was RSM, and that is apparently sometimes slower, which is really a surprise to me. And also NVIDIA is apparently developing, aka enabling smart access, obviously. And so what this resizable bar is, in the meantime, I did some more digging. And so this is as seen previously, where in our low-level videos you would memory map the whole frame buffer. Of course, nowadays it's becoming rather large, 4, 8, 16 gigs. And the problem is that for historic reasons, this was 32-bit for 32-bit systems from a decade ago. And this is probably why the default limitations of compatibility with BIOS and theoretically booting 30-bit operating systems, which of course nearly nobody except some Phil Computer Lab will do. And so this resizable bar probably, so you could theoretically just map this all in higher than 32-bit memories of 16-bit of the whole base address register there. And the only reason that we need this resizable bar is backward compatibility of in 32-bit memory space, and then later resizing that for mapping and opening and providing the whole frame buffer and VRAM texture memory. What surprises me is that this is sometimes slower in some benchmark. Also, yeah, NVIDIA is enabling the same, of course. But you wonder that it needed AMD to enable that of, hey, we have like 2, 3, 4, 5% higher performance, like a frame or 2 or 3 at times. And it surprises me that allegedly this is sometimes slower. Because what I didn't realize is without this resizable bar, or like full bar, whole VRAM bar, so to say, it probably would be a better term than resizable, is that previously would have banged the similar to real mode of 64K segments. Now with this was usually 512 megabytes, so a half gig. So with 16, that would be 32 bangs, or with 8, this would be 16 bangs of a half gig each. And I would expect that probably banking is too error prone and annoying, so probably they've DMA'd that. Probably we could theoretically, if the open source driver would be more readable, probably takes days to find that, or to poke some AMD developers to actually find this in this 100,000 lines of code. But banking probably would be too hard to synchronize and error prone and stuff, and a headache. So probably, I guess they DMA this, so that if you have a texture, then you DMA that from your application program memory where you load the texture to the VRAM, and whatever, maybe with some proxy VRAM area. It's probably, we should read this sources another day. But what surprises me, so you would think if you map the whole thing, it should always be faster, it should always be less overhead. So it puzzles me a little bit that on some YouTubers benchmarks that enabling smart memory access there and this resizable bar for full VRAM mapping is at times 1% or 2 slower. It's like, what the heck is going on there? Anyway, strange stuff, brave new world. I hope you learned something, mostly that this ray tracing. Also, yeah, don't trust early benchmarks. It's like, yeah, if developers actually start using it, optimizing it, then it can always be a whole bunch better. Anyway, yeah, that's it for this video. I have one more thing I quickly wanted to talk about, and to try this new experiment. Of course, we need to be careful that you don't unsubscribe, but rather share, like, and subscribe. One more thing after a short break in the dedicated video. And I hope you have otherwise a good day or night, and I hope to see you soon.